This latest clash along the India-Pakistan border was not just an aerial skirmish, it was a carefully planned strategic stress test by India, and the real target was not Pakistan, but China. At 3 a.m. on May 7th, the radar systems at Karachi port suddenly went dark. Snow-like interference filled the screens. The Pakistani Navy captain reported in a trembling voice, "Sir, the Indian fleet is already in front of us." No missiles, no warnings, not even news coverage, yet 36 Indian warships formed a tight noose within 20 kilometers. This was not a spontaneous reaction, but a precisely planned, silent drill strike. The GSAT-7 military satellite provided real-time navigation. P-8I anti-submarine aircraft patrolled at a low altitude, and the aircraft carrier Vikrant led the fleet southward, pressuring Karachi. India openly announced its lock on Karachi port, and multiple military experts have confirmed this as highly credible. Military analyst Tom Cooper revealed that the real target of this operation was not Pakistan, but the CCP. The entire mission simulated how China might collapse within 72 hours during a future plateau conflict. The Indian military controlled the entire electromagnetic spectrum, causing Chinese weapon systems at Karachi port to go silent. Chinese communication channels were also deliberately jammed and silenced during critical periods. But what the media shows is a completely different picture. The J-10 shooting down a single Rafale fighter, claiming a comeback and boasting a great victory. However, many analysts asked, if they had truly won, why did they cease fighting? If they were able to shoot down 6 planes during the air battle, why not 20? They claimed the Rafale was no match, and the J-10 was unbeatable, so why did they abruptly declare, "We don't want to fight anymore"? Some analysts believe that, most likely, Pakistan launched a surprise attack first, ambushing India while it was carrying out ground missions. But here's the problem. If the sneak attack succeeded, why was there not a counterattack? There's only one answer. They lacked the capability to continue the fight. The single air battle was all they could manage. The Indian fleet is right at Pakistan's doorstep, with full-spectrum electronic warfare dominance at sea. On land, forces advance on 3 fronts. Satellites lock onto the entire area, the port is sealed off, and supply lines are cut. Yet Pakistan can only pretend to stay calm, verbally calling for restraint while hiding deep despair. As for the so-called air battle victory, it looks more like a lucky surprise attack. Later damage reports show Pakistan's multiple air defense systems were precisely destroyed. What does this indicate? Either the early warning radar failed, or the air defense system itself was flawed. They have early warning aircraft, tactical networks, and pilots trained by China, yet they couldn't stop incoming missiles. This reveals serious failures in the entire command system. Other systems, including electronic warfare control, command chains, port defense, and tactical supply, were all crushed by India. This is not restraint, this is paralysis under strategic-level suppression. This is not a war, it's a complete crushing defeat. India is not merely showing off its military strength, it's using a real battlefield to test the CCP's limit. Will they dare to take action? Can they intervene? And are they prepared to confront the entire Western system head-on during the India-China border? The CCP has remained silent. It's not that they don't want to act, but that they simply don't dare to. So today, what we're discussing is not the outcome of a military standoff. It's the full process of a major power being treated as a test subject, repeatedly put under pressure, yet forced to pretend nothing is happening. India is the instigator, Pakistan is the test environment, and China is the silent observer. Port blockade for 72 hours. India wins without fighting. In the early hours of May 7th, India's cold start operation officially began. The aircraft carrier Vikrant led 36 warships silently into the waters off Karachi. Without firing a shot or issuing any warning, they completed a chokehold on the northern Arabian Sea within 3 hours. On the surface, a blockade of frigates sealed the area. Underwater, P-8I aircraft deployed sonar traps. Above, GSAT-7 satellite provided real-time coverage. Commercial ships halted operations. Oil tankers were blocked, and Karachi port became, in military terms, effectively dead. By the time the Pakistani Navy realized what was happening, it was already too late. Radar screens showed only static interference, communications were lost, ship control systems failed, core combat systems could not be restarted, and Chinese-made information and navigation systems were jammed beyond response. What's even more ironic is that China was not a bystander in this event, but a live test subject undergoing a forced operation. Pakistan used Chinese systems, Beidou coordinates, and J-10 air defense networks. This system had almost no ability to resist against India's US-led joint combat mechanism. Watching its own weapons being dissected on the spot, how did Beijing respond? Reports say that on the same night, China used diplomatic channels to urge Pakistan not to fire the first shot. On the surface, this was to avoid escalating the conflict, but in reality, it was out of fear of being dragged into the confrontation. The leadership in Beijing understands that if a real conflict breaks out, it won't just be a fight between India and Pakistan. It would mean a full-scale falling out between India and China, with the US, France, the UK, and Japan waiting to confront the CCP. China is not prepared for that. Even as 36 warships hover right under the eyes of its allies, it can only verbally call for restraint while physically remaining frozen. The result is clear. The port is paralyzed, the fleet reduced to mere decoration, and China loses without even daring to speak out. Karachi port has become a sonar prison. Sonar sensors cover both above and below the water, while constant aerial surveillance keeps watch. Chinese-made naval systems are completely silenced within this cage. Even a single supply ship, if it fires its engines, risks becoming a blazing wreck in the next moment. This is not a war. It's a silent reckoning of China's entire military system. Total land suppression. Pakistan left with no way out. The lockdown of Karachi was just the opening act. The real suppression took place on land. While the Navy closed in and the Air Force went silent, the Indian Army launched what can only be described as a lightning-fast full-scale deployment. Between May 8th and 10th, in just 3 days, the Indian Army, organized into integrated battle groups, completed the following operations. Multiple armored brigades completed rapid tactical maneuvers covering over 200 kilometers, advancing through the Ladakh and Punjab fronts. All field air defense systems were fully deployed forward, covering key border routes between India and Pakistan. Specialized Highland battalions took up positions at border crossings, conducting simulated combat infiltration drills. Most importantly, a military-grade encrypted satellite network went online, reducing response times for all the forces on the Western Front to under 6 hours. On the other hand, Pakistan faces incomplete mobilization, poor arms coordination, and insufficient support for Highland operations. Its electronic warfare command system heavily relies on Chinese standards, with no independent control over frequency bands. Pakistan is not merely avoiding confrontation, it has effectively lost the option to act. And China? It remains silent and restrained. While publicly expressing support for Pakistan, behind the scenes it has already begun detailed calculations on whether the China-Pakistan economic corridor will be affected, whether to deploy troops from Tibet for support, and whether to confront India directly along the border. The conclusion is that they're clearly not ready yet. You might think this is Pakistan's dilemma. In reality, it's the result of China's strategic miscalculation. China supplies the weapons, provides the technology, and calls Pakistan a staunch ally. But when the moment comes, it can't even synchronize command frequencies. It can only watch helplessly as its ally is surrounded, blockaded, and humiliated, while China itself takes 48 hours just to issue a statement. This is not considered support. This is abandoning ship, and that ship just happens to be the very Pakistan model the CCP built with its own hands and then left to sink. The CCP's role, providing guns, funding, and losing face. In this battle, the most concealed and most embarrassing player is not Pakistan, it's China. Although not a direct combatant, China suffers the worst defeat. China provided Pakistan with over 60% of its main combat equipment, from fighter jets to missiles, from air defense systems to communication networks. China is not a bystander, it is the hidden financier behind this conflict. It supplied the weapons, the technology, and the confidence. It even personally trained pilots and transferred military designs. The 2 pilots who shot down the Rafale jets both graduated from China's Changchun Flight University. They were aged 24 and 26, ranked only as above-average students, far from elite. The highly praised J-10C has long become an export showpiece. The entire production line was moved to a non-core area in Guizhou province and handed over to local military contractors to produce an order. You might think that this is the real backbone of China's defense, but it's actually a Chinese-style military-industrial image project. So what's the result now? Pakistan shoots down a single Rafale with its J-10, and the entire internet explodes with praise, declaring Chinese-made fighter jets shine on the international stage. CCTV and major social media all loudly claim Made in China supports Pakistan's air and space forces. But when real fighting breaks out, China stays silent. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs struggled for a full 24 hours before issuing a mild statement, urging all parties should exercise restraint. People online hit the mark. This is not a proxy war. This is China taking missile hits for others and still having to boast about it. China lacks official combat status in the conflict, providing only behind-the-scenes support. It bears blame without retaliation and struggles to establish a military reputation, facing harsh setbacks. The most frightening part is that the CCP still has to keep up this act. Admitting failure would mean the collapse of the entire China-Pakistan ironclad alliance image. It would signal the collapse of a decade-long Belt and Road strategy and shatter the People Liberation Army's so-called going global path with a harsh reality check. The conflict revealed India's rise and Pakistan's weakness, while exposing China's ineffective weapons, unstable systems, and fear of confronting the US, highlighting its fragile position rather than a lack of capability. So China's role can now be summed up as provide guns, provide money, lose face, and stay silent. China is the most embarrassed player in this battle. The CCP's assembled vehicle deception. Tom Cooper's Battlefield report reveals a harsher truth. China isn't selling Pakistan advanced weapon systems. It delivers what amounts to internationally assembled vehicles. Take the much-hyped PL-15 missile, boasting a 200-kilometer range and labeled a beyond visual range killer. But Cooper found that the JF-17C's radar detection range is only 150 kilometers. What does this mean? It means that the missile can fly farther than the eyes can see, but has no idea where to aim. What's the solution? You'd have to rely on Sweden's Area-Eye radar for sight. The Saab 2000 early warning aircraft locks onto targets and sends data to the JF-17C. The JF-17C fires the PL-15 missile, which is then guided by the Swedish radar to hit its target. So the whole chain is Swedish radar plus Chinese missile plus Pakistani pilots. Where's China's independent innovation? Without the ability to build a complete chain, is this so-called made in China? Even more laughable is the HQ-9 air defense system. Touted as the Chinese version of the S-400, it was completely wiped out by a few Israeli Harop drones. The HQ-9 site in Lahore was totally destroyed. Karachi's HQ-9 was at least severely damaged, and during the entire conflict, not a single HQ-9 system dared to activate. A multi-million-dollar air defense system became a live target for drones worth just tens of thousands of dollars. Even the training quality is second-rate. How can you expect this assembled system to go head-to-head with India's top-tier equipment? Managing a successful sneak attack is already a stroke of luck. What's most critical is that this assembled system immediately falls apart when facing true joint operations. India's GSAT-7 satellite, P-8I anti-submarine aircraft, and Vikrant aircraft carrier form a complete integrated sea-to-air combat network. The so-called China-Pakistan coordination looks like children playing house in comparison. Cooper's data shows that throughout the conflict, Pakistan's radars repeatedly displayed snow screens, communication systems went offline, and core combat systems failed to restart, and these were all Chinese-made systems. The problem lies in incompatible military standards. China's systems don't align with Western frequency bands, protocols, or command structures, making integration impossible. What is India using? US P-8I, France's Rafale, Russia's S-400, Israel's Harop drones, and Sweden's early warning aircraft. Yet they integrate all these into a complete system. Why? Because they follow NATO standards, have data link protocols, and decades of joint combat experience. The biggest loser in this conflict isn't Pakistan, it's the international reputation of China's military industry. The most ironic part is that after the conflict, China still has to keep pouring money into Pakistan, keep boasting about China-Pakistan friendship, and keep pretending that its weapons are powerful. But buyers know the truth. They're not selling weapons, they're selling military Lego. It looks flashy, but it's hard to assemble and it falls apart in battle. The harshest lesson in reality. Many are still caught up in the thrill of the J-10 shooting down a Rafale, but what is the reality? Pakistan is taking the hit, China is taking the blame, while India is celebrating victory. In just 3 days, India gave China the most expensive lesson in reality, what modern joint warfare means, what absolute control under information suppression looks like, and most of all, that you won't even be given a chance to fight back. This is not war, it's a humiliation, and the most ironic part is that this humiliation is arranged, funded, and boasted about by China itself.